I'm Alan Bresnick from Light Reading. I'm here in New York at our Future of Cable Business Services event, and I'm speaking to Erin Dunne from Vertical Systems. Hi, Erin.
Hi, how are you?
All right.
Great, thanks for having me.
Sure, thanks for being here. So, you talked on your panel about how cable is still making inroads in terms of Ethernet services.
Yep.
Can you give us what the latest market data show us?
So, the cable MSOs have done a very good job of taking market share from specifically the incumbent providers for the business Ethernet services market. Over the last 10 years, they started at essentially 5 or 6% market share and have really gained into the mid-20s at this point. There's 3 cable providers, cable MSOs that are in our top 8, which is called the Ethernet Services Leaderboard. And that means that they have 4% share or more of the overall business services Ethernet market in the US. There's also another one, Altice, which is in the challenge tier, which means they have somewhere between 1 and 4%. So you're looking at 4 of the largest providers that are playing real heavily in carrier Ethernet services.
So is the trend line going to where cable might actually become the lead in the space?
The trend line is catching as far as overall market share by provider. They're starting to converge. The incumbent carriers, the competitive providers, and the cable MSOs. Now we have had some merger and acquisition activity right now. So Level 3, which was previously categorized as a competitive provider, now owned by CenturyLink, is now what we'd call an incumbent provider. So things shift around a little bit. But yeah, you're seeing cable right up there at the top.
It's interesting to see also on the leaderboard that Charter Spectrum Enterprise is now above Comcast, even though Comcast is the bigger cable operator.
Comcast is the bigger, but again, there was some merger activity there where Time Warner Cable and Cox, earlier entrance into the market. So once Time Warner Cable and those merger activity happened, you saw them lift up. But Comcast has significantly sold or moved with or above the market rate. So I think you'll continue to see Comcast do very, very well in this market.
At the conference, we've heard from Comcast, Charter, Altice, and Cox all talking about SD-WAN.
Yeah, you have.
What do you think the prospects are for cable for getting into the SD-WAN market, and how much, and are they being overly ambitious?
I certainly don't think they're being overly ambitious. The SD-WAN market is a new, evolving market that we've
So like
seen,
the new Ethernet, right?
It's the new Ethernet, and as I said on my panel earlier, that we're talking about next-gen business services. I've always talked about Ethernet over the last many years at this conference, and now, because Ethernet always was the next-gen business service for cable MSOs, now it's the foundation for these new and evolving services, and the SD-WAN market is exciting. It's exciting for a couple of reasons. First of all, it can involve new players in the market. You have cable MSOs that have been here with business services, but they can now play out of market because they can partner with either other cable MSOs, other telcos, and they then can offer business services nationwide. We're also seeing start to play in this market this tier of what you'd call systems integrators or channel partners that, because you've now separated the data plane from the control plane, they can sell whatever broadband or wireline service they have a contract or they have a business relationship with, and sort of put that together using their own expertise, and all of a sudden they're now a competitive provider, right? They weren't able to do that in years past. So this is a new and exciting market for them. We've seen the SD-WAN interest explode, of course. Every cable provider that's represented here at your show has one that they're selling now, or it's on their roadmap. I think each one of them has expressed that. And we've seen also some of them have offers that they might be considered almost an interim offer. They're saying, this is a really hot market. This is a placeholder. We want to make sure that our customers don't look elsewhere. So we're going to offer an over-the-top solution, which will address the needs of our customer base. And it may be their full-time solution. This may stay, or they may keep it as they build in and virtualize their backbones in order to do this themselves. So you're seeing different types of SD-WAN services evolve now, over-the-top solutions and ones that are actually baked into the infrastructure.
One of the interesting things was that both Comcast and Charter talked about how they'll use it to go beyond their footprint.
Right.
which to me seems like the first time cable's talked about going beyond their footprint, which suggests they'll actually be competing against each other.
I think we may see some competition against each other, so it will be that sort of frenemy sort of thing,
Right.
where they're partners in some situations or competitors in other areas. SD-WAN allows them to do that
Right.
because as we know, there's a limited amount of providers.
Right.
We'll say in the United States, right? And no one service provider can access all the locations that are required. So you have to either buy, build, or purchase
Right.
the last mile access.
Right.
And there's only a few ways to do that. I think one of the things that you bring up, which is very interesting, is it really, as we build these networks up into the higher levels, you really start to see the importance of the backbone networks and
Right.
the wireline networks, which is the fiber builds. We've heard fiber deep here a lot more.
Right.
The DOCSIS 3.1 build outs by many of the cable providers.
Right.
Enterprise customers, whether they're a barbershop all the way on up through multinationals, are looking for safe, secure, fairly priced, flexible wireline options.
Right.
And so fiber addresses that for many of the providers. DOCSIS 3.0, 3.1, other types of technologies also, but it's so important to have that wireline network as your foundation.
So 1+ for the cable operators there.
1+ for the cable operators because they go very deep in
Right.
their networks. One of the things that is always a concern, I think, on the cable side is that the telcos have had years and years and years of regulatory and legal expertise in these partnerships, and
Right.
this is relatively new for the MSOs, right?
Right.
They've never had to do it.
Right.
So now you have, whether it's NNIs, ENNIs, Type 2 partnership agreements. These are not simple because you have a technology agreement that's required and a business agreement
Right.
that's required, and they're going to have to work to make those smooth, flexible, and quick.
Okay.
To come
Be
to
interesting
market.
to see what happens over the next couple of years.
It's going to be very interesting to see what happens.
Thanks very much.
Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.